Chapter 138. Number 1 Sword Under Heaven. At this moment, the entire hidden sword sect was shaken. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. One innate martial artist after another, some were in seclusion, and some were practicing their sword skills. But at this moment, they all turned their eyes towards the sword tomb peak. Some even rushed directly to the foot of the sword tomb peak. What happened to the sword tomb? Elder Lo, what's going on at the foot of the sword tomb peak? Why would sword tomb peak tremble for no reason? Moreover, there's the sound of swords from the sword tomb. This is the lament of 10,000 swords. What happened? In a short time, more than a dozen innate martial artists had gathered. This was not the entire hidden sword sect. There were definitely more than 20 innate martial artists in the hidden sword sect. This was the foundation of the hidden sword sect. Each generation had the world's number 1 sword master and could be considered the world's number 1 martial arts sect. Everyone's eyes were on Lu Zongyi. Lu Zongyi smiled bitterly and said, "I don't know what's going on with the sword tomb either. But I have a rough idea of who is involved. It's the Immortal Slayer Saber on the sword tomb peak." What Immortal Slayer Saber? Lu Zongyi, you let the Immortal Slayer Saber into the sword tomb. No wonder the sword tomb is lamenting. The Immortal Slayer Saber has comprehended saber intent, and it must have done something in the sword tomb. For a moment, all the martial arts masters were indignant. The sword tomb was the sacred place of the hidden sword sect. Now Lu Zongyi had allowed a saber-wielding guest who had comprehended saber intent to enter, which made the martial arts masters of the hidden sword sect feel very uncomfortable. Especially the sword intent erupted from the sword tomb was obviously at a disadvantage. Clang. However, before these martial arts masters could climb the mountain from a distant peak, an overwhelming aura surged out. This aura was majestic and vast. Like an unparalleled treasure sword, it soared straight into the sky. That soaring sky's peak, its senior brother Liu's sword intent. Senior brother Liu has also been alerted and even came out of seclusion. All the martial arts masters of the hidden sword sect had a look of astonishment. Soaring sky's peak was Li Yibai's mountain. The world's number 1 sword master of this generation in the hidden sword sect, Li Yibai, finally came out of seclusion. At this moment, inside the sword tomb, Lin Fei's transcended saber intent, with an incredibly domineering manner, directly suppressed hundreds of sword intents. 10,000 swords lamented. The entire sword tomb began to tremble. However, Lin Fei had indeed gained enormous benefits. Because the system's voice rang in his mind. Your saber intent has overcome difficulties, breaking through the suppression of hundreds of sword intents, and your cultivation progress has increased by 10%. Your saber intent, with its supreme dominance, has suppressed 10,000 swords, making them lament. Your saber intent has gained immense satisfaction, and its cultivation progress has increased by 20%. Lin Fei was shocked. His saber intent was rapidly increasing. Moreover, having previously resisted the impact of hundreds of sword intents, his saber intent's cultivation progress had already increased by 10%. Now it had increased by 40%. This was a terrifying number. Lin Fei's saber intent had already transcended, and it was not over yet. The saber intent was not just saber intent. It was also related to the true intention scroll. Because the saber chi Lin Fei cultivated from his true intention scroll was actually a fusion of saber intent. The stronger the saber intent, the stronger the saber chi. Naturally, it could drive the cultivation progress of the true intention scroll. Now, the saber intent had suddenly increased the cultivation progress by 40%. Immediately, the saber chi within Lin Fei's body began to increase crazily. Your increase in saber intent makes the true intention scroll suffer twice as much. Under the double incentive of saber intent, the true intention scroll fuses the saber intent crazily, and the saber chi surges. Your true intention scroll cultivation progress has increased by 40%. Your true intention scroll breaks through to the late stage. Lin Fei's saber chi within his body finally broke through another bottleneck, reaching the late stage directly. At the same time, the saber chi within Lin Fei's body was also surging wildly. Not an increase of 10% or 20%, but doubling, tripling 5 times, or even 10 times. The true intention scroll, created by the founder of the 9 Profound sect, was the fusion of innate true chi and saber intent. An increase in a realm had an incredibly large span. Boon. Above the sword tomb, in the void, a faint, translucent vortex appeared. Only innate martial artists could sense this vortex. This was a spiritual energy vortex. For Lin Fei's true intention scroll to break through and his saber chi to surge, he naturally needed a large amount of spiritual chi. Therefore, Lin Fei's transcendent saber intent was able to cover a part of the void, helping Lin Fei capture a large amount of spiritual chi from the heavens and the earth. In the void, it was as if a spiritual chi pillar had formed, pouring straight into Lin Fei's body. From innate spiritual chi to innate true chi, and then to saber chi. This conversion speed was very fast. Lin Fei seemed to feel that the true intention scroll was desperately transforming. With the pride of the true intention scroll, it certainly didn't want to be so desperate. But now that the saber chi was too strong and the true intention scroll was being suppressed by the saber intent, it could only practice desperately. At every moment, Lin Fei could feel his strength improving. It had been a long time since he had experienced such a rapid increase in power. System. Lin Fei immediately summoned the system panel. Host, Lin Fei. Martial Realm, Innate Martial Artist. Master, Late Stage. True Intention Scroll, Late Stage, 32% progress. Saber Intent, Transcendence, 36% progress. Fist Intent, Mastery, 51% progress. Heavenly Saber Art, Transcendence, 0% progress. Immeasurable Fist, Transcendence, 0% progress. Close Yet Distant, Transcendence, 0% progress. Indeed, on the system panel, Lin Fei's true intention scroll had reached the late stage. His saber intent had even reached transcendence. Moreover, the distance to perfection wasn't too far. At least, it was now within reach. Coming to the Hidden Sword sect was the right choice. Lin Fei muttered to himself. Swish. At this moment, a terrifying sword intent soared into the sky, piercing straight into the clouds. This sword intent was sharp and pure, like a peerless divine sword that had been hidden for decades and was finally unsheathed. Its sharp aura seemed as if it could pierce the heavens. Lin Fei suddenly looked up. Vaguely, he saw a figure dressed in white as pure as snow. Step by step, it slowly walked into the sword turn. Lin Fei saw the figure clearly. It was a man who didn't appear to be young. His temples were already graying. It seemed to reveal traces of the passage of time. His eyes were extremely deep, showing no hint of sharpness. However, his sword intent was sharp to the extreme. As the man walked step by step, his sword intent seemed to be gathering strength. When he arrived at the sword tomb, the man's sword intent reached its peak. The terrifying sword intent solidified as if it had become real, continuously colliding, cutting, and entangling with Lin Fei's saber intent. For the first time, Lin Fei encountered a living martial artist whose martial Dao true intent could rival his saber intent. It should be known that Lin Fei's saber intent had already reached transcendence, but when it came to martial Dao true intent alone, the two sides were evenly matched and equally strong. In the Hidden Sword sect, there was only one person who could reach the transcendence of sword intent. Number 1 Sword Under Heaven, Liu Yi Bai. Lin Fei looked at the man with graying temples in front of him. Chapter 139. 250 meters of saber energy. Hidden Sword sect was a very strange sect. They had an obsession with swords that was difficult for ordinary people to understand. For the disciples of the Hidden Sword sect, swords were their family, even a part of their bodies. They practice swordsmanship, fight with swords, and consider being second best a disgrace. They all strive to be the best. Among them, the titled number one sword under heaven is the most typical. Every generation of the hidden sword sect must fight to claim the title of number one sword under heaven. If they cannot win the title, the whole sect would be shamed and seen as a disgrace. For thousands of years, almost every generation of the hidden sword sect had had the title of number one sword under heaven. However, there have been exceptions. For example, 900 years ago, during the era of the founder of the Nine Profound sect. That era belonged to the founder of the Nine Profound sect. No matter fists, swords, or sabers, the founder of Nine Profound sect was the best in the world. When the founder of the Nine Profound sect dominated the world, the hidden sword sect was very frustrated. Because they couldn't win the title of the number one sword under heaven no matter what. So, for an entire generation, hidden sword sect was suppressed by the founder of the Nine Profound sect. And this generation's number one sword under heaven of the hidden sword sect was this man with grain temples in front of him, Liu Yibai. Liu Yibai stopped. He calmly looked at Lin Fei. Immortal Slayer Saber, Lin Fei. Moreover, you are from the Nine Profound sect. Back then, the founder of the Nine Profound sect suppressed our hidden sword sect for an entire generation. It seems that the Nine Profound sect is about to rise again. Late Stage Master, Saber intent at Transcendence. You once defeated He Yuanzi and He Qingzi, two high-level Qi condensation experts with your saber, making your name known throughout the world. Not long ago, at the Martial Alliance Exchange, you defeated Yuan Gangza, another top-tier Qi condensation expert with your saber. Your martial talent is almost on par with the founder of the Nine Profound sect back then. Liu Yibai recounted Lin Fei's past achievements as if they were old friends reminiscing. However, their saber and sword intents constantly clashed and fought in the void. Some innate martial artists didn't even dare to approach them. Getting too close would cause them to be affected by the aftershocks of the two's martial Dao true intent. Even innate martial artists couldn't withstand it. The entire sword tomb could now only accommodate Lin Fei and Liu Yibai. Lin Fei's gaze was also calm. He said lightly, number one sword under heaven, Liu Yibai. 30 years ago, you left hidden sword sect to challenge the 13 martial factions, remaining undefeated. Later, you defeated numerous sword masters to claim the title of number one sword under heaven. Since then, you returned to hidden sword sect and sealed your sword for 30 years. 30 years without drawing the sword. Liu Yibai, are you going to unsheath your sword today? Liu Yibai stared at Lin Fei and said calmly, I've been sitting in my cave dwelling for 30 years, just to break through my shackles. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to break through my shackles in 30 years. I understand I need an opportunity. An opportunity to unsheath my sword. Now that you are here, I sense that opportunity. After 30 years of concealing my sword, today, I shall reveal it in your presence. With this strike, I hope that Immortal Slayer Saber will oblige. Gradually, Liu Yibai's hand gripped the sword hilt. I, too, possess a saber. When my saber is unleashed, all others bow. Lin Fei also reached out his fair hand. A terrifying saber energy brewed within him. Once it erupted, it would surely shake the heavens. Liu Yibai had concealed his sword for 30 years. To break through, he needed someone to test his sword against. Not just anyone was worthy of being Liu Yibai's test subject. Lin Fei was qualified. Because he was the Immortal Slayer Saber. He could suppress 100 sword intents, making 10,000 swords wail in despair. Lin Fei had now advanced to the late master stage. His saber intent had reached transcendence. He, too, wished to test his saber. It had been a long time since he had swung his saber with all his might. In the entire world, few could now compel Lin Fei to strike with all his strength. One who had once dominated the world's swordsman as the world's number one sword. Another, the immortal Slayer saber, whose saber would surely slay immortals, its fame shaking the world. One to test a sword. One to test a saber. Suddenly, the wind began to blow atop the sword turn. The cold wind pierced to the bone. Clothes rustled in the wind. Both stood silently in their places and no one spoke. Whoosh! Li Yibai made his move. His swordsmanship was never about reacting. His sword emphasized the word first. One step ahead, always ahead. Thus, Liu Yibai unsheathed his sword first. A dazzling sword light instantly tore through the void. In Lin Fei's eyes, it seemed as if the entire world contained only this single sword. Brilliant white light. A sharp sword edge. Liu Yibai was, after all, the only Grand Master of the entire hidden sword sect. His innate true qi had already reached perfection. This strike was also the first time the Grand Master, Liu Yibai, had taken action after concealing his sword for 30 years. And it was a full-force strike. His sword had always been a one-strike weapon. Victory or defeat all in this single strike. Lin Fei also unleashed his saber. However, his method of doing so was quite unique. He extended his hand. Then, the saber chi within his body exploded with a roar. Vroom. In the next moment, a surging, torrential saber energy, like a volcanic eruption, instantly burst forth from his body. Tyrant Saber. The saber Lin Fei condensed was the Tyrant Saber from the Heavenly Saber art. The vast saber energy rapidly converged in the void. However, this time the saber energy extended far beyond 30 meters. 30 meters, 60 meters, 90 meters, 120 meters, 150 meters. The saber energy in front of Lin Fei rapidly soared. Incredibly, it rose from 30 meters to 250 meters. The terrifying saber energy exuded an endless aura of dominance. This was the Tyrant Saber. Moreover, it was the Tyrant Saber condensed from 250 meters of saber energy. Lin Fei's eyes were deep. He calmly gazed at the sword light in the void. This is my saber. Heavenly Saber art, strike. Lin Fei used his palm as a saber. Then, with a wave of his hand, boom. 250 meters of saber energy resembled a towering pillar, emanating a ruthless tyrant saber energy, vast and overwhelming, crushing everything in its path. Originally, the sky around them seemed to contain only that single sword light. But now, as soon as Lin Fei's 250 meters of saber energy appeared, the sword light shattered. Seeing Lin Fei's 250 meters of saber energy, Liu Yibai felt a shock in his heart. Then, the sword light in his hand unexpectedly surged again. Even the saber intent seemed to be on the verge of reaching its limit, about to transform. But it wasn't enough. Still not enough. Nowhere near enough. Just a little bit more. With just a little bit more, Liu Yibai's sword intent could reach perfection. Crack. The next moment, the saber energy and sword light didn't even collide. Liu Yibai's sword actually began to show faint cracks, as if it would shatter completely at any moment. The sword is breaking. Liu Yibai closed his eyes. This sword had accompanied him for decades, once wielding to dominate the world, owning the reputation of #1 sword under heaven. But now, the sword was about to break. One crack after another appeared on its surface, torn apart by the saber energy. If it weren't for his innate true qi protecting it, it would have shattered long ago. Bang! Finally, the sword in Liu Yibai's hand completely crumbled. Whoosh! However, the next moment, Liu Yibai suddenly opened his eyes. And his sword intent, at this very moment, transformed like a butterfly breaking free from its cocoon, reaching perfection. Sword intent perfected. At this moment, Liu Yibai finally achieved perfection in his sword intent. Sword, come forth. Liu Yibai beckoned. His voice seemed to reverberate through the void. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Instantly, countless swords on the sword tomb flew out, numerous swords hummed softly. Yet, they did not wail in despair but rejoiced. They were jubilant. It was as if these swords, hidden deep within the sword tomb, had been granted a new lease on life. One sword after another overlapped, radiating dazzling sword light. It also stretched almost 100 meters. Slash! Li Yibai also fiercely waved his hand. Immediately, the 100 meters of sword light likewise slashed towards the void. Boom! 250 meters of saber energy and 100 meters of sword light, at this moment, finally collided completely. Chapter 140. Number 1 Saber Under Heaven. At the foot of Sword Tomb Peak, many martial arts masters of the Hidden Sword sect gathered together. Their eyes widened, staring intently at the scene above the sword tomb. The 250 meters saber energy was vast and overwhelming, as if it could destroy everything. Everyone knew it was the saber energy of the Immortal Slayer saber. At the Martial Alliance exchange, Lu Zongyi had personally witnessed Lin Fei unleashing more than 30 meters of saber energy. With one strike, he defeated the top-tier Qi condensation expert Yuan Ganze. And now, 250 meters of saber energy. Seeing this scene, Lu Zongyi fell silent. How much time had passed? From the Martial Alliance exchange to now, it had only been a mere 2 months. And in just 2 months, Lin Fei was already able to slash out 250 meters of saber energy. On the other hand, there was the pride of the Hidden Sword sect, the number 1 sword under heaven of this generation in the Hidden Sword sect, Liu Yibai. They all knew Liu Yibai's situation. His innate true Qi had long reached perfection, and he had advanced to the Grand Master realm. His sword intent had also transcended long ago, but always fell just a bit short. He had concealed his sword for 30 years, all in search of an opportunity to break through. Therefore, when Liu Yibai drew his sword, it would surely be earth-shattering and the strongest sword in his life. Almost 100 meters of sword light lived up to everyone's expectations. It made the martial arts masters of the Hidden Sword sect feel their hearts tremble. The sword light was simply astonishing. However, who was stronger and who was weaker? Was it the number 1 sword under heaven? Or the Immortal Slayer saber? No one knew. Even Lin Fei and Li Yibai, who were confronting each other on the sword tomb, didn't know. Crack! The two terrifying forces of saber energy and sword light continuously collided and intertwined. The aftermath spread out in all directions like ripples on the water. Wherever it passed, the sword tomb was leveled. Finally, the clouds dispersed and the wind was gentle. Both the saber energy and the sword light had disappeared. Lin Fei stood quietly on the sword tomb. All around were broken sword fragments. And opposite Lin Fei, Liu Yibai, wearing a white robe, spotlessly clean. He also stood quietly, neither of them spoke. At this time, seeing that there was no movement on the sword tomb, the dozen or so Hidden Sword sect martial arts masters at the foot of the mountain also hurried to the sword tomb. Grand Elder Liu Yue. A martial arts master wanted to step forward and support Liu Yibai, but Liu Yibai slightly shook his head. The crowd was puzzled. Both of them seemed to be fine. They didn't know who had the upper hand in the end. Liu Yibai lowered his head. Everyone followed Liu Yibai's gaze. A corner of Liu Yibai's robe, with a puff sound, was cut off and fell to the ground. Everyone was astonished, but Liu Yibai laughed. The Immortal Slayer saber lives up to its name. I admit defeat. Liu Yibai's words shocked everyone. All the martial arts masters widened their eyes as if they couldn't believe Liu Yibai's words. How could Liu Yibai lose? How could the number 1 sword under heaven lose? How could a Grand Master lose? Lin Fei's tone was very calm, responding indifferently. The number 1 sword under heaven is indeed well-deserved. Grand Master is also well-deserved. Actually, this time, it's not really about who wins and who loses. If it wasn't for your sword intent just breaking through and fighting hastily, I wouldn't have been able to cut your rogue's corner. You are the first martial artist to ever block my saber energy. Yu Yibai shook his head. I just took advantage of the location. Without the hundreds of sword intents in the sword tomb to assist me, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to withstand your saber. However, no matter what, I must thank you. Concealing my sword for 30 years, I finally found the opportunity today. I drew my sword and unleashed 30 years of sharpness, also cutting away 30 years of depression. Now, my achievements are perfection, and my sword intent has reached perfection as well. I owe you a favor, Brother Lin. Yu Yibai didn't seem to care too much about winning or losing anymore. His initial shout of "Sword, come forth" was not just a casual one. After his sword intent reached perfection, the power of the hundreds of sword intents in the sword tomb reinforced his sword. Only then could he compete with Lin Fei's 250 meters of saber energy. Otherwise, in other places, without so many sword intents, Liu Yibai would probably not be able to withstand Lin Fei's saber. This saber was truly earth-shattering. Even now, as Liu Yibai recalled it, he still felt palpitations. Even though his sword intent had reached perfection and he was a true Grand Master, he had no confidence that he could block Lin Fei's saber again. Lin Fei, I am the #1 sword under heaven. And you shall be #1 saber under heaven. Today, the surrounding hidden sword sect martial arts masters had already been shocked countless times. #1 saber under heaven. If these words were spoken by someone else, it would probably be taken as a joke. But these words were spoken by Liu Yibai. From the #1 sword under heaven, from the mouth of a martial arts grandmaster. It was different. Moreover, just now Lin Fei's saber had unleashed 250 meters of saber energy. Just with this one saber, Lin Fei's title of #1 saber under heaven was truly well-deserved. Back then, the 9 profound sects founder was unparalleled in fist, saber, and sword. Whether it was the #1 sword under heaven or the #1 saber under heaven, they were all from the 9 profound sects founder. Unexpectedly, now the 9 profound sect has given birth to another #1 saber under heaven. And Immortal Slayer Saber, Lin Fei hasn't even become a martial arts grandmaster yet. He can still continue to improve, and his future achievements are unimaginable. Could this be another figure like the 9 profound sects founder? The many martial arts masters of the Hidden Sword sect were extremely shocked in their hearts. They looked at Lin Fei with complicated gazes. As martial artists, especially the martial arts masters of Hidden Sword sect, they actually didn't want any martial artist to surpass Hidden Sword sect. Hidden Sword sect had been glorious for thousands of years. Except when Great Chan's founding emperor swept the world and established Great Chan. At that time, Hidden Sword sect had no martial saint. It was suppressed by Great Chan's founding emperor. Being suppressed by a martial saint was somewhat understandable. However, there was another era. That was the era of the 9 profound sects founder. The 9 profound sects founder, as a Grand Master, suppressed the entire world's martial arts. Hidden Sword sect was also unable to hold its head high. At that time, Hidden Sword sect also had a Grand Master. But what about it? No matter how many Grand Masters, the 9 profound sects founder only needed 1 sword, 1 saber, and 1 punch. He didn't even need to use a second move. Such a peerless figure suppressed Hidden Sword sect for an entire generation, making the millennium of the glory of the Hidden Sword sect seem dim and dull. Now, the Hidden Sword sect has finally gradually recovered its vitality, and a Grand Master had been born. Moreover, his sword intent had reached perfection. He was a Grand Master with perfected sword intent. But now, Immortal Slayer Saber, Lin Fei appeared. Just as astonishingly talented as the 9 profound sects founder, but even younger than the 9 profound sects founder. Lin Fei was now only at the late stage of the master level, but he could slightly surpass the perfected sword intent of Liu Yibai. In the future, when Lin Fei's saber intent reached perfection and he achieved the level of Grand Master, wouldn't he be able to suppress the world horizontally? Hidden Sword Sect was very likely to be suppressed by Lin Fei for an entire generation again. For a moment, the martial arts masters of the Hidden Sword Sect felt bitter in their hearts. Everyone looked at Lin Fei with complicated expressions. The atmosphere in the entire sword tomb seemed to quiet down all at once. Lin Fei, do you want to build your foundation? At this moment, Liu Yibai suddenly spoke and his gaze fixed on Lin Fei. Chapter 141. The Secret of Foundation Establishment. Lin Fei's gaze was as sharp as a saber. He stared intently at Liu Yibai. This was not the first time Lin Fei had heard this term. Martial artists also needed to build their foundation, but it was different from chi condensation practitioners. Martial artists build the foundation of their martial arts. This martial arts foundation was even more difficult than the Immortal Dao Foundation. Even the 9 Profound Sect's founder, who once suppressed the world and was pitilessly brilliant, ultimately failed to build his foundation successfully. This showed how difficult foundation building was. Which martial artist in the world doesn't want to build their foundation? However, the difficulty of foundation building is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Could it be that Elder Liu has a way to build the foundation? Lin Fei spoke slowly, word by word. Li Yibai did not speak. He waved his hand. Clang clang. The broken swords on the sword tomb all vibrated. Then they were buried underground. Elder Lin, this is where the predecessors of our Hidden Sword Sect buried their swords. Let's not disturb the swords of our predecessors. How about going to my cave dwelling to talk? Lin Fei nodded and said, in that case, I will respectfully comply. Lin Fei had no problem becoming a martial arts Grand Master with his perfected saber intent and saber energy. Even Lin Fei believed that he would not be inferior to the founder of the 9 Profound Sect in the future, but it was the foundation building that Lin Fei had no confidence. After all, even the 9 Profound Sect's founder failed to build his foundation successfully. He didn't know any information about foundation building. He was naturally very interested in Liu Yibai's invitation. Liu Yibai glanced at the surrounding martial arts masters and spoke calmly, I ask that today's matter not be spread by the elders present. Liu Yibai was not afraid that others would know he couldn't handle Lin Fei. It was just that the current situation in Great Chan was unfavorable for martial artists. What he and Lin Fei were going to do was not a trivial matter. The news must not be leaked. Elder Liu, rest assured, we understand and will not spread the news. The surrounding martial arts masters also responded one after another. At the same time, their hearts gradually settled down. Foundation building was the pursuit of martial arts masters. Even if Lin Fei, the #1 saber under heaven, was strong, so what? Once Li Yibai successfully built his foundation, the Hidden Sword Sect would have been the only martial sect in Great Chan for the past 300 years. A martial sect is a sect in martial arts. Once they achieved the status of a martial sect, they would be much stronger than ordinary foundation establishment cultivators. More importantly, martial saints had a long lifespan. They could protect the Hidden Sword Sect for hundreds of years, allowing the Hidden Sword Sect to remain at its peak and flourish during this time. Thus, talents would continue to emerge and there would be no fear of the sect's decline. The 250 meters of saber energy that Lin Fei had unleashed earlier had shocked the martial arts masters, but they gradually calmed down now. The Hidden Sword Sect's Grand Elder Li Yibai had already achieved sword intent perfection and true chi perfection. He was now ready to start building his foundation. Even if Lin Fei were really another founder of the 9 Profound Sect, if the Hidden Sword Sect gave birth to a martial sect, there would be no fear of being suppressed for an era. Everyone left the sword tomb one after another. Lin Fei followed Li Yibai, flying towards his cave dwelling. Soon, the two arrived at Liu Yibai's cave dwelling. This cave dwelling was located on Soaring Sky's peak, which was Li Yibai's mountain. Entering the cave dwelling, Lin Fei saw that the surrounding arrangements were very simple. There was no unnecessary clutter. Everything was practical and minimalist to be able to cultivate. In such a cave dwelling for 30 years, Lin Fei admitted to himself that he couldn't do it. How strong and determined must one's spirit and will be? It was no coincidence that Liu Yibai achieved sword intent perfection. The two sat down cross-legged. Liu Yibai was the first to speak, asking, "Elder Lin, do you know the conditions for foundation building in martial arts?" Conditions? Lin Fei shook his head and said, "I'm not hiding anything from Elder Liu. 9 Profound Sect has never produced a martial sage who has built its foundation. Thus, I know nothing about foundation building in martial arts. Please enlighten me, Elder Liu." Liu Yibai nodded slightly and said with a smile, "The so-called foundation building, those chi cultivators say it's like a carp leaping over the dragon's gate. It's the foundation for becoming immortal or achieving Tao. It sounds profound and mysterious. However, in the eyes of us martial artists, foundation building is actually very simple. It's a metamorphosis allowing our bodies to transform anew. The human body has its limits. This is a natural restriction. We can't infinitely increase our innate true chi, nor can our physical bodies be infinitely strengthened. What should we do when our bodies reach their true limits? That's when we build our foundation. Once the foundation is successfully built, it's equivalent to a different level of life, a sublimation of life. That's why those chi cultivators call those who have built their foundation true person. And we martial artists, after building our foundation, are called martial sages, transcending the mundane and becoming holy in martial arts." Lin Fei understood. Both immortal Dao Chi cultivators and martial artists could build their foundation. Although the foundation building methods were different, in fact, both were the sublimation of life. Otherwise, it would not be possible for one's lifespan to increase significantly upon building their foundation. It was equivalent to a different level of life. Only in this way could they break free from the original constraints of the human body and continue to enhance their strength. Martial arts foundation building requires one to reach their limit. The limit, which we also call perfection, requires 3 perfections: physical body perfection, true chi perfection, and mental perfection. In fact, these 3 perfections represent the essence, chi, and spirit of the human body, and none can be lacking. True chi perfection is when innate true chi reaches perfection, which is commonly known as a martial arts grand master. The mind is unfathomable. Martial artists use their will to represent the mind, so martial artists need to comprehend martial Tao true intent. Once martial Tao true intent reaches perfection, it represents mental perfection. The last one, physical body perfection, refers to the body. We, martial artists, have been refining the body from the beginning, which, in a sense, is actually laying the foundation for physical body perfection. However, is the ultimate body refining, giving birth to inner power, truly the ultimate? Not necessarily. That is not the ultimate physical body. If we want to build our foundation, we must cultivate the physical body to the extreme and elevate it to the extreme. And this is actually very difficult. Because physical body perfection is the only one that cannot be achieved solely by the martial artist. It also requires the help of external objects. External objects. Lin Fei's heart was moved. Yes, external objects. All kinds of heavenly materials and earthly treasures, rare birds, exotic beasts, etc. In short, it is about sparing no effort to nourish one's own body to make it reach perfection. What characteristics represent physical body perfection? Lin Fei asked. Liu Yibai paused for a moment. Then, he said sullenly, word by word, skin like a baby, body exuding a unique fragrance, flawless and pure, untainted golden body. This is physical body perfection. Once the physical body reaches perfection, it is like the legendary Buddha or a holy being. The physical body is impervious to swords and spears, invulnerable to water and fire, unsinkable in water, and immune to all diseases. Lin Fei stretched out his hand. His hand had fair and tender skin, but there was still a significant difference compared to a baby's skin. As for the unique body fragrance, that was even more impossible. Not to mention being impervious to swords and spears, invulnerable to water and fire, and unsinkable in water. This was almost like a myth. Such a person with this kind of physical body, even without building their foundation, would be free from diseases and live a long life for hundreds of years. Because this represents the limit that a mortal body can reach. Lin Fei knew that his physical body had reached its limit. No matter how much he practiced hard martial arts or body refining techniques, it would be of no use. Achieve physical body perfection, it was almost impossible for martial artists to do it on their own. External objects were needed. Elder Liu, please tell me straight. What kind of heavenly materials and earthly treasures, rare birds and exotic beasts? How much effect can they have? To truly reach physical body perfection, what exactly is this external object? Lin Fei's gaze was fixed on Li Yibai. He knew that this was the key. Chapter 142. The Key of Foundation Establishment. Exotic beasts. Li Yibai spoke directly. To truly achieve physical body perfection, one must consume the flesh and blood of exotic beasts. Actually, martial arts were very prosperous thousands of years ago, not inferior to chi cultivators, and even more flourishing. At that time, there were many treasures that could help achieve physical body perfection. It wasn't necessarily required to consume the flesh and blood of exotic beasts. After all, exotic beasts are too powerful. Most adult exotic beasts are comparable to foundation establishment cultivators or martial saints. Unfortunately, later martial artists and chi cultivators seem to have had a great war. The specific reason for that war is unknown. But since that war, the number of experts in Great Chan sharply decreased. There were even powerful beings above the foundation establishment realm left, and it's unknown where they went. Perhaps they went to the outer seas, or perhaps to the northern countries. After that war, it seemed that various heavenly and earthly spiritual objects gradually decreased. In the beginning, some martial saints could hunt exotic beasts to prepare their flesh and blood for their younger disciples. However, as time went by, the number of exotic beasts became fewer, and eventually, they were almost extinct. When there were no exotic beasts, even the most astonishingly talented people could not establish their foundation and become martial saints. Do you think that there hasn't been a martial saint born in Great Chan for 300 years since the sword saint of my hidden sword sect passed away because martial artists are not talented enough? Elder Lin, 9 Profound Sect's founder, was talented enough, right? Even among the martial saints that my hidden sword sect has produced, I'm afraid none can compare to the talent of the 9 Profound Sect's founder. Even foundation establishment cultivators praised the 9 Profound Sect's founder. If he became a martial saint, the 9 Profound Sect's founder might have been even more powerful than the Great Chan's founding emperor, and even had the potential to surpass the foundation establishment level. Unfortunately, the 9 Profound Sect's founder was born in the wrong era. By the time his unparalleled talent dominated the world, exotic beasts had already become extinct. Even if he traveled the world, he couldn't find a single exotic beast. Without the flesh and blood of exotic beasts, the physical body could never achieve perfection. Even if one forcefully established their foundation, it would be futile. In the end, he could only be depressed and regretful until their time was up. Lin Fei's heart was moved. Liu Yibai mentioned the 9 Profound Sect's founder. It turns out that the 9 Profound Sect's founder couldn't find an exotic beast. In the end, his physical body couldn't achieve perfection. That's why he couldn't establish his foundation and become a martial saint. No wonder the royal elders mentioned after the 9 Profound Sect's founder had read the martial arts secret records left by the Great Chan's founding emperor, he had shouted several times, "I don't believe it." Most likely, the 9 profound sects founder had also seen in the martial arts secret records that to achieve martial state, one's physical body must achieve perfection. And to achieve physical body perfection, one must consume the flesh and blood of exotic beasts. Otherwise, it would be impossible to successfully establish one's foundation and become a martial sage. Both the founding emperor of Great Chan and the sword saint of Hidden Sword sect from 300 years ago most likely had the fortune to consume the flesh and blood of exotic beasts. That's why they were able to successfully establish their foundation and become martial sages. So, Elder Liu knows the whereabouts of exotic beasts. A glint flashed in Lin Fei's eyes as he stared intently at Liu Yibai. Without any information on exotic beasts, Liu Yibai would not have wasted time telling Lin Fei so many secrets. That's right, I accidentally encountered an exotic beast decades ago. Later, I tracked it several times and discovered that there were actually several exotic beasts. I can't do it alone, I can't kill the exotic beasts. So, I need to find someone. Now in the entire Great Chan, there is probably no martial artist who can surpass you and me. Only by joining forces with Elder Lin can we have a glimmer of hope to kill that exotic beast and obtain its flesh and blood. By then, both of us can achieve physical body perfection and have the hope of successfully establishing our foundation and becoming martial saints. Lin Fei's mind was shaken. As expected, Liu Yibai knew the whereabouts of the exotic beasts. But exotic beasts are at the foundation establishment level. Do you know how difficult would it be to kill one? Those martial saints in the past were usually from powerful families or sects, capturing exotic beasts to have a chance to consume their flesh and blood. But now there are no martial saints. Elder Liu, can we too handle a foundation establishment level exotic beast? Lin Fei was still very clear-headed. Liu Yibai nodded appreciatively and said in a deep voice, indeed, if it's a foundation establishment level exotic beast, even if we join forces, the odds are against us. However, decades ago, I tracked down those exotic beasts and they gave birth to 2 young ones. After decades of growth, those 2 exotic beasts have grown up but have not yet reached adulthood, and their strength is not comparable to that of adult exotic beasts. If we join forces, there might be some chance. But we can't delay any longer. Those 2 exotic beasts are about to reach adulthood. Once they become adults, we will have no chance left. This was the real reason why Liu Yibai urgently told Lin Fei about the secrets of the Martial Sage Foundation establishment and exotic beasts. Liu Yibai couldn't wait any longer. If he waited any longer, those 2 exotic beasts would become adults. By then, he would completely lose the opportunity to kill the exotic beasts, which is equivalent to completely losing the chance to establish his foundation and become a martial sage. Lin Fei was also considering it. If the matter about the exotic beasts was true, he absolutely could not miss it. Even though Lin Fei's saber intent and true chi had not yet reached perfection, that didn't matter. It wouldn't affect his physical body's attainment of perfection. Once his physical body reached perfection first, after his true chi and saber intent reached perfection, Lin Fei could directly attempt to establish his foundation and challenge the martial sage realm. If he missed this opportunity, even if Lin Fei had confidence in his saber chi, what if he still couldn't kill an adult exotic beast? That would be troublesome. When do we set off? Lin Fei didn't think too long. He raised his head and asked. He had already made a decision. At the beginning of the 3rd month, when the weather turns warmer, those adult exotic beasts seem to migrate to give birth to new exotic beasts. Those 2 immature exotic beasts are most likely to stay behind. That will be the best opportunity we have in a year. Lin Fei calculated. There was still more than 4 months from now. In these 4 months, Lin Fei could make some preparations. He could even learn more about martial saints, foundation establishment, and exotic beasts to see if what Liu Yibai said was true. He couldn't rely solely on Liu Yibai's words. Lin Fei had to have his own judgment. All right, let's set off at the beginning of the 3rd month, Lin Fei agreed. By then, I'll give you a letter to confirm the specific location and time. No problem. With that, the two discussed some more details. Lin Fei then bid farewell to Li Yibai and left the Hidden Sword sect. Watching Lin Fei's departing figure, Li Yibai's eyes became deeper. Immortal Slayer Saber, Lin Fei. I didn't expect that the 9 Profound sect would give birth to such a powerful martial artist. In terms of talent, he is no less than the 9 Profound sect's founder. However, this is a good thing. With Lin Fei, the chances of slaying that exotic beast are even greater. Li Yibai knew very well. This was almost his last chance. If he didn't succeed, once detected by the exotic beasts, there would be no chance for the next attempt. Therefore, this time, success was the only option, failure was not allowed. Chapter 143. Ambition. Upon returning to the 9 Profound sect, Lin Fei headed straight to the main hall. The sect master, seeing Lin Fei, finally breathed a sigh of relief. Elder Lin, was your trip to the Hidden Sword sect smooth? Very smooth. I even gained some unexpected benefits. Hidden Sword sect does have a deep foundation. There are actually over 100 sword intents in their sword tune. We don't have such a foundation in the 9 Profound sect. The sect master was slightly taken aback. Sword tune. Over 100 sword intents. That place is a vital area of the Hidden Sword sect, and ordinary people are not allowed to enter, let alone Elder Lin, who is a saber cultivator. The sect master had a bad feeling in his heart. Yes, the 100 sword intents in the sword tomb honed me, and helped my saber intent finally reach transcendence. Besides, Li Yibai is also quite good, capable of withstanding one of my sabers. Ever since I comprehended saber intent, almost no one has been able to withstand one of my sabers. Yi Yibai is truly worthy of the title #1 sword under heaven. As Lin Fei casually spoke of all this, the sect master's face turned ugly. He had originally thought that since there had been no news from the foot of the mountain, Lin Fei shouldn't have caused any trouble. But now it seemed he was a bit too optimistic. From Lin Fei's words, it sounded like he had fought a battle with the #1 sword under heaven, Li Yibai. The sect master knew how powerful Lin Fei's saber energy was, which was more than 30 meters long. It was so powerful that even Zhao Kongming refused to discuss the matter of sparring. Li Yibai, the #1 sword under heaven, had a long-standing reputation. 30 years ago, he was already invincible, and he was also a Grand Master. Could Lin Fei really provoke such a strong person? Elder Lin, you didn't kill Li Yibai, did you? The sect master's voice trembled. I didn't. Li Yibai is very strong. In the Hidden Sword sect, I could barely defeat him, but I couldn't kill him. Lin Fei told the truth. The Hidden Sword sect's sword tune had over 100 sword intents. Li Yibai's sword intent had already reached perfection. With the blessing of over 100 sword intents in the Hidden Sword sect, Lin Fei couldn't do anything to Li Yibai. However, if they were outside the Hidden Sword sect, the situation might be different. The sect master sighed in relief. As long as Li Yibai didn't die, that was enough. If Li Yibai had really died, it would probably lead to a life-or-death struggle between the Hidden Sword sect and the 9 Profound sect. But being able to barely defeat Li Yibai, didn't that mean Lin Fei was now on par with a martial arts Grand Master? Sect Master, has the founder not left any information about foundation building? Lin Fei asked. The sect master was still shocked by Lin Fei's barely defeating Li Yibai. After hearing Lin Fei's question, he shook his head and said the founder had traveled extensively for a long time. He only returned to the 9 Profound sect when his life was nearing its end. Besides leaving the stele on the ancestral Master Peak, he didn't leave anything else. As for martial arts foundation building, there is no record of it in the 9 Profound sect. Lin Fei thought for a moment. It was probably because the founder of the Nine Profound sect couldn't find any exotic beasts during his travels. In the end, he returned to the Nine Profound sect as hardened. As for martial arts foundation building, the founder of the Nine Profound sect couldn't find any exotic beasts himself. Without exotic beasts, the path of foundation building for martial artists might be completely severed. Therefore, the Nine Profound sect naturally didn't leave any information about foundation building. There would be no use in leaving it. It seems that I have to go to Chan City. I hope the royal family will allow me to read the martial arts secret records left by the founder emperor. Only then can I learn the specifics of martial arts foundation building. Lin Fei knew, at present, there were only a few places in this world where information about martial arts foundation building and martial saints could be found. The royal family had martial arts secret records. The information about martial arts foundation building was probably the most comprehensive. Although Lin Fei believed that Liu Yibai's words were true, he still had to gather more information, so he could make his own judgment. Elder Lin, are you going to Chan City again? The sect master asked softly. Yes, going to Chan City. Don't worry, this time I'm just asking the royal family to let me read the martial arts secret records. I won't cause any trouble. Lin Fei knew the sect master's concerns. He was afraid that Lin Fei would cause big trouble in Chan City again. But what kind of big trouble could there be now? Killing a perfection stage chi condensation cultivator or provoking a foundation establishment expert? That was simply impossible. Lin Fei wasn't going to cause trouble this time. He was asking the royal family for help. All right, Elder Lin, but you have to be careful on your journey. Recently, the Guardian Primordial Mountain seems to be making quite a lot of moves. We don't know what they are up to. Moreover, there have been signs of rebellion in various places within the Great Chan territory. The world is becoming more and more turbulent. The sect master also sighed. The more turbulent the world was, it meant that the Great Chan royal family's control over various places was getting weaker. Once the royal family couldn't hold on and chaos spread across the world, He Mountain Dao and Guardian Primordial Mountain wouldn't be polite to the Nine Profound sect. Guardian Primordial Mountain. A strange light flashed in Lin Fei's eyes. Now that foundation establishment couldn't come out, who could trouble him? If the Guardian Primordial Mountain quietly lurked and waited for the royal family's supreme elder life to end, it would be fine. But if they dared to make a move against him, Lin Fei wouldn't mind cutting down a few more top chi condensation cultivators from the Guardian Primordial Mountain. So Lin Fei went down the mountain alone again. He still didn't ride a horse. Using saber chi, he traveled using the close yet distant technique. Often, he could cover a distance of 30 meters in one step. This was not Lin Fei's full power. If he exerted his full power, his close yet distant technique would definitely cover more than 40 meters in one step. Lin Fei didn't use his full power to travel because he wasn't in a hurry. After all, there was still about 4 months left until his agreement with Li Yibai. There was still plenty of time. On his journey from the Nine Profound sect to Chan City, Lin Fei saw scenes different from before. It seemed that there were many more refugees than before. Some villages were filled with corpses. It was unclear whether they were the work of chaotic soldiers or bandits. Although it wasn't as severe as widespread starvation or people resorting to cannibalism, the whole world was indeed becoming chaotic. And when the world was in chaos, it was the common people who suffered the most. Lin Fei had heard from the sect master before. It seemed that there had already been rebellions in various places in Great Chan. Once there were chaotic soldiers, the world might quickly decay. Prosperity brings suffering to the people, and decline also brings suffering to the people. Better to be a peaceful dog than a person in a chaotic world. Lin Fei shook his head. He was just a martial artist. He couldn't take care of all the people in the world. However, when he encountered bandits or chaotic soldiers killing ordinary people in the way, Lin Fei would take action, killing those chaotic soldiers or bandits. But in comparison to all the people in the world, the ones Lin Fei saved were just a drop in the bucket. In the end, even when he was near Great Chan, there were actually large numbers of refugees. Lin Fei knew that the situation in Great Chan was already very serious. Kaiyan Prefecture has fallen again. I heard that it was those Paradise Sect members who stirred up trouble in Kaiyan Prefecture, leading to its fall. The Paradise Sect's chaotic army is now powerful, and they have successively conquered various prefectures. Sigh, now that trade routes are cut off and prices are soaring, when will this end? Appearance of this Royal Supreme Elder had almost extended its life by another 500 years. Thus, the prestige of the Royal Supreme Elder was even slightly higher than that of the Great Chan founding emperor. Greetings, Supreme Elder. Lin Fei also gave a slight salute. He was very respectful to the Foundation establishment true person. After all, it was equivalent to a martial state-level powerhouse. Lin Fei, you may view the founding emperor's martial arts secret records. However, the royal family has been facing many difficulties recently. Paradise Sect's rebel army is attacking cities and seizing territories. The royal family has dispatched several high-level qi condensation cultivators, but they still cannot stop them. I estimate that some immortal sects are directly involved in the rebellion. Immortal Slayer Saber is famous for its ability to slay top-tier qi condensation cultivators. If you go, you will definitely be able to assist the Imperial Army in suppressing the rebels and quelling the rebellion. Once you succeed, you may return to the royal family and view the martial arts secret records. Furthermore, I can even meet with you and answer your many questions. The words of the Royal Supreme Elder echoed in Lin Fei's ears, but Lin Fei couldn't find its figure. This must be the means of the Foundation establishment true person. Mysterious and unfathomable, impossible to fathom. Lin Fei couldn't help but ask, does the royal family not have top-tier qi condensation cultivators or powerful martial arts masters? The Royal Supreme Elder replied, the royal family has top-tier qi condensation cultivators, but they have been sent to other places. Currently, there are unstable factors everywhere in Great Chan. As for powerful martial arts masters, unless they are martial arts grandmasters or have comprehended martial Dao true intent, how much chance do you think they have against those immortal sect qi cultivators? Lin Fei understood. The Royal Supreme Elder had said so much, but the message he wanted to convey was just one thing: the royal family was in great difficulty. At least for now, it was very difficult. Even a small Paradise Sect's rebel army could not be suppressed. Moreover, they had to ask for help from an outsider like Lin Fei, relying on external forces to suppress the rebellion. Supreme Elder, I agree. After suppressing the rebellion, I will return to view the martial arts secrets. Lin Fei didn't think too long. In fact, he didn't even need to consider this. The royal family had also been helpful to Lin Fei. Moreover, the relationship between the Nine Profound Sect and the royal family was quite good. In addition, the Paradise Sect's rebellion caused the common people to be displaced and suffer. They were truly a chaotic army. Lin Fei had seen so many refugees along the way. All of them had to flee because of the Paradise Sect. He had no good feelings towards such a chaotic army. Suppressing the rebellion as soon as possible would bring peace to the world sooner. Good, you are a straightforward person. Go and ask the Emperor for a decree and token for Lin Fei. With it, he can smoothly travel to the Imperial Army that is suppressing the rebellion. After the Royal Supreme Elder finished speaking, his voice disappeared. The three Royal Elders respectfully said, "Yes, Supreme Elder." The three elders slowly got up. They glanced at Lin Fei and then smiled. "Master Lin, please wait a moment. We will go to the Emperor for a decree right away." "Thank you, Elder." Lin Fei sat in the ascending dragon chamber. He closed his eyes to rest and quietly waited. Before long, the elder returned. He brought a decree and a token. Lin Fei took the decree. The general idea was to inform the frontline Imperial Army generals that Lin Fei was a martial arts expert sent by the Emperor and that he would assist the Imperial Army in suppressing the rebellion. If necessary, they should follow Lin Fei's lead. Master Lin, this is just a decree. After all, your speed may be faster. The Imperial Court will also issue orders to the frontline later, but they may be much slower than you. This decree and token can save you a lot of trouble. Lin Fei nodded. He directly took the decree and token and put them in his pocket. 3 elders, I take my leave. Lin Fei didn't delay. He just wanted to suppress the rebellion as soon as possible and then come back to view the martial arts secret records. Lin Fei calculated the time. He had 4 months until the agreed time with Li Yibai. It should be enough. Watching Lin Fei's departing figure, the 3 elders couldn't help but sigh, our great Chan, how did it come to this? We can't suppress a mere Paradise Sect rebellion and even have to rely on external forces. It's because we, the descendants of the royal family, are incompetent. Otherwise, how could the Supreme Elder be so worried? Lin Fei is a martial artist after all. Can he really suppress the rebellion? The 3 elders were all worried. Martial artists were incomparable to chi cultivators. Chi cultivators wield powerful magical artifacts, capable of suppressing thousands, even tens of thousands of people. Unstoppable on the battlefield. They could even collapse city walls with their magical artifacts. But martial artists, how many could they kill with their personal strength? Although the 3 elders didn't have high hopes for Lin Fei to quell the rebellion, it was the Supreme Elder's decision. They dared not say more. Lin Fei returned to the South Qin mansion from the palace. Lin Yo hurried over upon hearing the news. Lin Fei, how was your visit to the palace? Did the elders agree to let you view the martial arts secret records? Lin Yo asked directly. Lin Fei shook his head. At first, the royal elders didn't agree, but then the royal supreme elder sent a message asking me to go to Kaiyan Prefecture to assist the Imperial Army in suppressing the rebels and putting down the Paradise Sect rebellion. Upon success, I can return to the Ascending Dragon Chamber and view the martial arts secret records. I agreed. I came here to ask the princess for information on the recent movements of the Paradise Sect's rebel forces. What's the situation on the front line? Lin Fei didn't rush to the front lines without preparation. He needed to understand the situation on the front lines before making a decision. You going to the front lines to quell the rebellion? Lin Yara's expression changed slightly. Lin Fei, the situation on the front line is complicated. Behind the Paradise Sect rebellion, there are traces of the Immortal Sect's involvement. Moreover, there's definitely more than one Immortal Sect. The royal family has sent chi cultivators and martial artists to the front lines. Even the high-level chi condensation cultivators from the royal family, those elders, have also gone. However, they still couldn't put down the rebellion and instead suffered a great defeat with heavy casualties. Going into this muddy water at this time is too dangerous. Lin Yara's voice was filled with urgency, even some worry. At this moment, she wasn't concerned about whether the court could quell the rebellion. Instead, she was concerned about Lin Fei's personal safety. Lin Fei glanced at Lin Yara. Then, with a calm tone, he said lightly, without a foundation establishment cultivator, who can kill me? Lin Fei, you. Lin Yara's mind was shaken. During this period, she didn't know the news about Lin Fei. Why did Lin Fei seem to have changed somehow? It seemed that he had become more confident. His every move seemed to carry an air of disdainful arrogance. Senior Sister Ling, you only need to know that without a foundation establishment cultivator, no one can harm me. Otherwise, do you think the Supreme Elder's personal request for me to go to the front lines to quell the rebellion is just casual talk? when Lin Fei returned to the South King Mansion, he already had a faint suspicion. The Royal Supreme Elder might have already known about his battle with Li Yibai in the Hidden Sword sect. After all, the Royal Supreme Elder had lived for 500 years. He was a true antique. In the entire world, there was no one who had lived longer than the Royal Supreme Elder. Not a single one. With such an ancient existence, what could be kept hidden from the Royal Supreme Elder? Lin Ye didn't know how strong Lin Fei was now. But she believed in Lin Fei. That was enough. So, Lin Ye nodded and said sullenly, the court had once dispatched an army to quell the rebellion, but they were defeated and retreated. This time, the commander of the army is General Li Yuhu. General Li Yuhu has fought battles all his life and has very rich experience. If you can eliminate some hidden chi condensation cultivators or other hidden experts within the Paradise Sect rebels, then leave the battles to General Li Yuhu, who can certainly quell the rebellion in the shortest possible time. Lin Fei nodded, I understand. The commander of the Imperial Army is a capable general. Leave the battles to him and the slaying of rebel experts to me. Only in this way can the Paradise Sect's rebellion be quelled. Lin Fei asked Lin Ye because he was afraid the commander of the Imperial Army was incompetent. By that time, even if he killed the experts within the Paradise Sect's rebels, if the commander of the army was incompetent, leading to the army's defeat, there would be trouble. Now it seemed that the court was not foolish. They had dispatched a steady and experienced general to command the army. All right, Senior Sister Lin, there's no time to lose. I will depart for the front lines immediately, strive to quell the rebellion as soon as possible, and then return to Chan City. Lin Fei, on the battlefield, sabers and swords are blind. Be careful. Lin Fei nodded. Then, he took a step forward. In a few leaps, he disappeared without a trace.